Welcome to Handcraft Yoga's handcraft tutorial. Today we're going to make ourselves a card. So grab some supplies. You might want to grab a couple of magazines and some scissors, a couple varieties of sheets of paper, colors you like, and of course a base, a couple of markers and pens, maybe a glue stick, and maybe a couple of different types of decorative tape. I use washi tape. Whatever you want, whatever you have will work. So, thinking about our theme, this this card in particular, we're working with a love card, how much you love yourself. It's a Valentine's Day theme month, and I know it's past Valentine's Day, but you might still be making yourself a card in that spirit. So as you look through your pages here, try to find things that fit that theme. If you were using this tutorial to make a card for somebody else, you would practice in the same way, searching through one, magazines that have content that resonate with you or the person that you're making a card for, and two, finding things in there that isn't necessarily related to the words or any of the actual stuff in the pages, but just what jumps out to you, particular colors or backgrounds or whatever. Use a variety. Be playful with it. That's part of the approach we're cultivating self-love with in this part of our workshop, is trying to create a little bit of an outside the box approach to being satisfied with your creation. So not just on your yoga mat, but in your craft room or at your kitchen table, wherever you're creating this mini masterpiece. So thinking about it as if you were, your inner child was coming on board to make this card with you, what kind of things would they find? And what kind of things would they want to incorporate? And so having some fun with it as you're flipping through, you might think about getting more stuff than you need and get all a bunch of things without planning in your head how you're going to use those things. So a lot of that makes us get hung up in certain outcomes. We have expectations as we start to cut things out, but just try to let it be free flowing up until the point of you have all of your items out in front of you, and then you're just going to go with it. When we did this in our actual workshop in person, I gave them 10 minutes, so there wasn't a whole lot of time to think about it. So you've got your piece of paper you're going to make your base out of, and this is just a regular piece. I cut it in half, and then we fold that in half. That's a pretty typical card size. If you want to make something smaller, like a classic Valentine, go for it. If you want to make a huge card, be my guest. It's your card. Do whatever you feel is right. So once you have your card base, you'll start to think, how might you add a little contrast, a little interest? I'm using this background pink that is going to be a little bit of an offset to the white. And so I'll put that down while I try to figure out how I'm going to arrange some of the words that I cut out, some of the message that I'm trying to send myself. How will I say this message? I'm not even sure what it is yet. So sorting through the things that I've collected, sorting through my thoughts, and making something happen. So something else to think about is oftentimes you'll cut out, like I have there, hear me roar. And I know that I'm trying to find a way to use that sentiment like that. I want to keep it together and I want it to say, hear me roar. But I know that I might end up having to cut roar off of there or me off of there. And so something to think about while you're here is to listen to your heart, to not get too hung up on what you've already cut out. So you don't have any investment in these sentiments. You can cut those words, you can cut them down to letters. So don't get attached to the first thing. Let it be flowing. Let yourself cut things up. You can always glue them back together, right? So what do you got to lose? Just experiment again, like with that childlike sense of wonder, without the thought of this isn't going to make any sense. It's a card to you. try to release that inner critic and just let yourself have play. Playful creativity. Such a powerful breath of fresh air. So as you're working through, try not to think about it as work. I used the wrong word there. As you're playing through, think about all the cards you've received and how oftentimes there's something on the outside, a main theme, and then something on the inside, maybe a nice poem that kind of drives it home. So considering what you have there out of your cutouts and what you might want to write with your hand, pen to paper. I have here my front is nearly done, and I think I'm going to add a little washi tape leopard contrast there. I just love the pink with the leopard. It's so appropriate for a Valentine's Day card. So sassy. So I'm going to add some handwritten ands into my front card to say, listen to heart and breath and roar. Okay. And then I'm going to figure out how to make the inside drive that point home. So I'm going to hunt for some stuff here. So there's a chance that in your ending of the posture practice, if you participated in our asana posture practice, you wrote yourself, or perhaps you didn't have a chance to write it down. Maybe you thought these things to yourself. Some gratitude for a party, an imaginary party you threw yourself there in our asana practice. We had a moment to visualize a grand day that you made happen for yourself. And it was limitless. It was budgetless. You were able to do whatever you wanted, bucket list style. How did you spend this day? So I had a few prompts there to help you think of who was there, what did you do, what did you smell, were you by yourself? Maybe your perfect day is you doing a bunch of solo introvert things, which I totally get. So in that way, after you imagined all of this amazingness, then we had a moment to write down gratitude for it. So speaking your gratitude, I think, is a big part of self-love and loving others, holding space, is being able to cultivate what we're grateful for. And so, in thinking about this card to you, you might incorporate some of that thank you message that you thought of, or maybe you wrote it down and you could slide it into this card before you send it to yourself if you're going to go that far, which I highly recommend, because a few days will go by and you'll forget all this creativity you put into this card. So many things will happen. You'll forget the sweet note you wrote yourself. And surprise, surprise, when you see that colorful envelope with your handwriting on the envelope, you're going to be surprised. Even though you spent this time doing it, it's still going to be like a really happy surprise when you get that in your mailbox. And it's not a bill. It's not a junk mail. It's not anything but just a little pep talk to yourself. So I'm looking over my card. I'm loving the inside. It says how to be loved, #trust yourself, which is a big theme I'm working with this year. Unleash your power, it says on the back. And then I always sign my cards, made with love by Monty B. McGee. Of course, you'll write your name. And I like to put the year. It's a great reminder to look back. When your friends, when they get a card that you made like this, they're not getting rid of it. They keep it. It's pretty cool. So then they can look back and say, you gave me this card 10 years ago. So I have envelopes out the wazoo. You might not have envelopes of all the colors, but you can probably find something that would work. It's fairly easy to make an envelope as well. I'll probably post a tutorial about that here soon. But find one that holds your card and add the last few bits of remaining pieces you cut out from your magazine. I put that little jewel on there to spice it up. I know that blocked my address, but I'm going to just set it on my pillow. In the daytime, morning times, in the evening I'll get it, and it'll still be a nice surprise. So I added these little last words, which I did end up cutting up, "Hear me roar." And I remember thinking, wow, I wouldn't have had me to put on the front if I would have made that all stay together. So I was glad that I was able to utilize more of it, more space. So one last bit of leopard, couldn't help myself. Feel good about the card, judgment free. Love the message. I can write in it still if I feel like adding a little bit. Definitely put some gratitude in there to yourself for taking the time out to do a silly little thing like this. It's the little things that add up to the big things. So make it great. Thanks for playing and have a beautiful day. Hope to see you in the rest of the workshop.